I, 28M, am currently sitting in a quiet, empty house that feels a lot lighter than it did a week ago. I'm a structural engineer, so I'm literally trained to spot cracks in foundations before a building collapses. Too bad I didn't apply those skills to my own relationship for the last 3 years. My girlfriend, 26F, and I lived together in a brownstone I inherited from my grandfather in a nice part of Chicago. I thought we were solid. I thought we were building something. But 3 weeks ago, the foundation didn't just crack. It disintegrated. It started with a notification on her phone while we were watching a movie. She usually hides her screen, but she was reaching for popcorn, and I saw a digital wedding invitation. The name on it was her ex-boyfriend. They broke up 4 years ago, right before we met. She always described him as a learning experience, but her reaction to this news was more like a Victorian tragedy. For the next week, she was a ghost. She stopped eating dinner with me, spent hours crying in the bathroom with the fan on to hide the sound, and when I asked what was wrong, she snapped that I wouldn't understand because it was a lot of history. The real drama started when her mother showed up. Her mother has always been a piece of work, the kind of woman who thinks anyone who doesn't work in a high-rise office is utilitarian. I walked into my own kitchen early from a site visit and heard her mother whispering. She was telling my girlfriend that the ex was making a mistake and that he was only marrying this other woman because my girlfriend wasn't an option anymore. She told her she needed to show up at his pre-wedding events near their family cabin to remind him of what he's throwing away. I cleared my throat and they both jumped. Her mother didn't even look embarrassed. She looked at me with this sheer entitlement and said, "We're having a private family conversation." I told her I lived there and wanted to know why she was encouraging my girlfriend to crash an ex's wedding. Her mother stood up, smoothed her designer skirt, and told me to my face that I was just a placeholder and a stable choice, while her daughter waited for the man she actually belonged with. My girlfriend didn't defend me. She just stared at her tea and said she needed closure. Over the next few days, the entitlement went into overdrive. My girlfriend stopped going to work, claiming her emotional state made it impossible to function. Meanwhile, she used our joint credit card, which I fund almost entirely because I make 3 times what she does, to buy a $1,200 designer dress. Her mother even started measuring the windows in my living room, casually mentioning that when the ex came to his senses and moved back to the city with my girlfriend, they'd need to brighten the place up because it felt like a tomb. They were literally planning to move another man into my house while I was still paying the property taxes. My girlfriend finally packed a suitcase and told me she was going to stay at her mom's for a bit to get her head straight before driving up to the mountain town where the ex was having his bachelor weekend. She told me she was following her heart and that I should consider the $5,000 she'd just withdrawn from our savings as a severance package for the last 3 years. She actually had the nerve to say I could afford it. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just let them leave. The second the door clicked shut, I went to work. I checked our shared tablet, which she'd left behind in her rush. I found an email thread between her and the ex's best man. It turned out the ex didn't want closure at all. He had actually had a restraining order against my girlfriend's mother that had just expired, and he blocked my girlfriend on every platform because she had been harassing his fiancé for months with burner accounts. They weren't seeking a lost love, they were stalking a man who was terrified of them. I knew exactly what I had to do. I didn't call her. I didn't give her a heads up. Instead, I contacted the groom's fiancé. I sent her a very professional email with screenshots of everything. The reasons why we work notebook my girlfriend had been writing in, the emails with the best man, and their specific plan to ambush him at a local coffee shop on Friday morning. I also called my bank. Since the $5,000 withdrawal had left our account unable to cover upcoming automated mortgage payments, I flagged the transaction as unauthorized and linked to criminal harassment. The bank froze her access to everything. Friday morning, I drove up to the mountain town myself. I stayed in my car across from the coffee shop. I watched as my girlfriend's car pulled in. She stepped out looking like a movie star in that $1,200 dress, her mother acting like a director, pointing her toward the door. They went inside to wait for their destiny. 10 minutes later, the ex-boyfriend's SUV pulled up. He got out with his fiancée, and two guys in dark suits. As soon as my girlfriend walked up to him and started her rehearsed speech about true love, those two guys stepped forward. They weren't just security, they were off-duty officers. The mother came charging out of the shop, screaming at the fiancé that she was holding him hostage and that her daughter was the only rightful choice. It was absolute chaos. The officers didn't hesitate. They handcuffed the mother on the spot for violating a permanent injunction. Turns out her prior legal issues with the groom were more serious than I knew, and they served my girlfriend with a fresh restraining order and a notice for a harassment lawsuit. I stepped out of my car and walked over right as they were being pressed against the squad car. My girlfriend saw me and actually had the audacity to scream, "Fix this. Tell them it's a mistake." I just looked at the officer and said, "I'm the owner of the residence where they've been living. I'm here to formally report the theft of $5,000 and credit card fraud used to fund this trip." The look of pure, venomous shock on her face was better than any severance I could have asked for. The legal fallout was a total clean sweep. In the USA, violating restraining orders and crossing state lines for harassment is a fast track to a jail cell. Because I proved the $5,000 was taken specifically to facilitate a crime, the severance package defense was laughed out of court. Her mother took a plea deal, 2 years of probation, a permanent no-contact order for the groom, his family, and me, and 200 hours of community service. Seeing that woman in a neon vest picking up trash on the side of the highway was the most utilitarian she's ever been. My ex-girlfriend got a deferred prosecution, but part of the deal was she has to pay back every cent of that $5,000 plus my legal fees. She's currently working 2 retail jobs just to keep up with the court-ordered payments to me. I've since cleared the house, changed every lock, and even hired a company to deep clean the placeholder vibes out of the guest room. It turns out that when you remove the rot from the foundation, the whole building stays up just fine on its own. If you enjoyed this story of a structural engineer actually doing his job, make sure to subscribe. Unlike my ex, I actually know how to keep a commitment.